Welcome back to the Formation Lap with Todd and Brad after the checkered flag. And we are talking about the race that we just saw in Budapest, Hungary. For the first time in 2026, no P1 out of Mercedes, no P1 out of Ferrari. It was a Lando Norris win, his first win as world champion. So, Todd, I'll welcome you in here. What a great Grand Prix we saw at the Hungaroring. Lando Norris with his first win in 2026, the first win for McLaren. Super exciting weekend. Todd, we didn't got a little bit wrong in the predictions, but hey, that's what Formula One is all about. And so I'll bring in here. Welcome back, and what was your thoughts on what we saw in Hungary on Sunday?
Yeah, Brad. Yeah, it was an exciting race. We did see some overtakes more than what we thought, and then some strategy that played out. And you're smiling ear to ear because your guy
I am.
won.
I
And
am finally.
I picked him third, so he surprised me and went ahead and won from pole, which that hadn't happened in a long time. But yeah, I mean, Hungary was a fun race. It was a hot one, and
Hmm.
now they're on a summer break. Lando's one of his first things was I can't wait to sleep.
Yeah.
So he's it. But Lando broke it, got his first win of the season. He's been chipping away, and I'm going to tell you, too, Max once again somehow extracted everything he could out of a car that's supposed to be there. And then, like you said, Mercedes is even though they strengthened their position, they figured it out.
Hmm.
But it was fun, and then you know it was just. It was exciting to see what the race was about, but we also had some disappointments that we thought we were going to be bigger. And I just think it was crazy. But Brad, we're about to go in the second half of the season. What does this do for Lando? What do you think it does for Lando?
It's huge. He's shown some frustration at times of in Spa. He could have easily been on for a podium and just had some unfortunate luck. And I've always said, Lando is a guy that he's a great driver, but gets in his head and he can lose his confidence very, very quickly. This is going to be huge for him. And man, he was pushing like crazy. And
Yeah.
want to jump in here. Oscar had an encouraging weekend, and man, did Oscar have some terrible luck. He made a fantastic pass on there. I think it was about the fourth or fifth corner. Lando did go a little bit wide, but Oscar. I don't know. I think Lando had a little bit more pace, but just really unfortunate Oscar retires. But yes, Lando has got a ton of confidence, and we heard from Lando, from Oscar, from Zach Brown, from Andrea Stella that when the upgrades come, when McLaren got that updated power unit from Mercedes, that they were going to be on for wins. And Todd, I was expecting it to come after the summer break, and man, this was McLaren's. I think it was as a constructor their 14th win at Hungary. Lando back to back wins here in Hungary. So I think obviously
Yeah.
it's a long shot for him to get back into the drivers' championship, but this is huge confidence. And now I think it's put McLaren, which I'm excited about. Obviously, I think it's put McLaren into the conversation with Ferrari and Mercedes that they're going to be on for not only podiums but wins here, and could really throw a wrench into this. When Kimmy or Lewis or Charles or George don't score P1, that's a pretty big deal. So fascinating weekend, man. It's just crazy to see. Lando was just his lap times were incredible, and I
Yeah.
mean, even when I know his Will Joseph, his engineer was telling him, "Hey, Lando, we know you're fastest on track. Don't get yourself track limits and get an
Yeah.
unnecessary penalty.
Yeah.
Don't stop trying to prove your point. Stop trying to prove your point." But fantastic weekend for him. Super proud of him, and a guy that I followed ever since I got into F1 when he was 18, 19 years old. So super cool to see him get back on top.
Yeah, yeah, and Brad, I think you're spot on. I mean, they've been chipping away at it, and I think they
Hmm.
finally are back. They were showing flashes earlier this year, strong race pace, and they're fourth in the drivers' champion, or third in it, and they're trying to figure it out. And I think they finally got a clear execution, and I think yeah, the track suited McLaren well. We didn't expect it at that level, but and then Lando was like, "I'm going to push. I don't care what you
Oh
say.
yeah,
I'm racing,"
oh
But
yeah,
I think it's great, and I think they've joined Mercedes and Ferrari as the top three contenders now. It's
absolutely.
been a question, as we've gone on. We'll find out over the summer break,
Yeah.
when they come back. We got a sprint race coming, first thing
Mm-hmm.
right out of the gate. So we'll see what happens. But, Brad, the other thing I was thinking about is championships aren't won just on average weekends either. And, Mercedes didn't dominate. As
No.
we just said, Kimmy didn't have the fastest car, but he got on the podium, right? And he got some more points. And it was another weekend where Mercedes walks away smiling, but, George doesn't. But, Brad, how much pressure is it putting on Ferrari and McLaren now? Mercedes, even though they're having problems, they're still making it. What's your thoughts?
Yeah, I mean, you look overall. I believe. Well, Lando got 25 points for McLaren as a team, so McLaren chipped away.
Yeah,
You know, it is. I mean, look, Kimmy. I mean, I don't think anyone expected. And Todd, we talked about this. Hungaroring is such a tough place to pass, and Charles started in P2. Of course, Lewis had a 3-place grid drop, so he started P5, but. I
right.
think I think especially from Ferrari's perspective going into the race on Sunday, they're like, well, they're Mercedes' biggest challenger right now, both in the drivers and constructors championship. I think the mindset from Fred and the rest of the team was like, hey, we can take a big chunk out of Mercedes as well as Kimmy, and it didn't happen.
Right.
Kimmy had a fantastic race to get himself back up.
He
To,
did.
to, to the podium. And so I think it definitely probably hurt Ferrari's confidence a little bit. Charles had a really, really slow start. Uh, Taught an interesting strategy, and hey, I commend Ferrari for thinking outside the box, but they started Charles and Lewis both on the softs.
I
And
know.
so, a bold strategy there, but, we could all kind of see that coming after in Q1 that they both did their first qualifying lap on a medium. We're like, okay, Ferrari's going to start on soft. So yeah, tough weekend, tough race on Sunday. I think Ferrari was hoping for more, expecting for more, especially after a good qualifying. But look, we still got a bunch of races to go. Anything is up for grabs, but this is a race that Kimmy's obviously not in P1, but he's still got a great load of points, which is going to help his title hopes.
Yeah, it's going to be something exciting as we see because I mean he's a championship driver, no doubt
Absolutely,
about it. And again, he didn't get the VSC like he
yeah.
could have. Would that have made a difference? I don't think so. I think he would have maybe challenged Max. He would have caught Lando, but Mercedes just going along, and George, of course, having terrible problems again. But here's what I think that I saw from watching the race in Hungary is that patience is rewarded in Hungary
Absolutely.
because it's a crazy track and it was hot.
Hmm.
I mean, if you
Yes.
saw the drivers, they were Kimmy couldn't even talk. He was
Yeah.
exhausted at the end of
Yeah.
that race. But one thing that we talked about in our preview was Hungary, was going to be usually it isn't one outright speed, and we talked about that with no
Right.
straights, right? It's one through qualifying and then managing the tires. But in the end, if someone watched the race expecting constant wheel-to-wheel action, which we did see some, and we saw some bumping of it, but I think we got to see these guys 11 races in now really understanding the car but
Hmm.
on a track that was going to challenge them like crazy.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
Brad, I guess let's move into the some trending. Of course, McLaren first victory,
Yeah.
huge confidence going in. I think Ferrari is trending up, even though they might not have done well on the results. It's showing that they've got the pace and they're starting to
Hmm.
knock on the door. And and I talked about it right at the very beginning too. Max, even without the package, and that car is a mess for
Yeah,
him
Todd, and
figuring
I
it
know you.
out.
I know you brought this up, but to me, Max has done the last couple races kind of what Lando does, and this is a term that we use here in American sports. Max and Lando, like they have manufactured stuff, and what I mean by that is, we talk about,
Yeah,
just kind of doing the small things, doing the things that don't necessarily get you any publicity. We talk about manufacturing runs in baseball, manufacturing offense in American football. Max is doing that. This car is a mess. I mean, Max is constantly talking about the shifting in his car. He's just not
yeah,
happy with it. Seems like even when Max is world champion, he's going to find something to complain about. But hey, that's what makes him, one of the greats. Todd, truly, Max was so unhappy with the car all weekend, especially in the race. But guess what? He manufactured himself to P2, and
Yeah.
then Isaac, honestly, he had a fine race. I mean, he's sitting there in P6. So I think Red Bull is definitely definitely in the right way. Todd, I want to jump to the midfield. A couple as Racing Bulls is still, man, they look good, and going to the summer break, they have now submitted themselves as they've now passed Alpine. They're 5 points clear of Alpine. Todd, how about the weekend Audi had? Nico Hulkenberg scores his first points of the season, and I got to tell you, Bortoletto they're in P11. So I think Audi is starting to put themselves in the conversation. And what an encouraging weekend out of Aston Martin. Stroll finishes 13th, Fernando 14th, and Fernando got to Q2 on Saturday. So Aston Martin with good strides. And Todd, before I turn it back over to you, a couple of midfield teams that I think are just their loss. Cadillac, I mean, that's nothing new. Sergio and Valtteri, I mean, just they both are
Yeah.
tired. They're both struggling. And what in the world is going on at Williams? I
Yeah.
really, I mean,
Yeah.
they have a Mercedes power unit. I thought, they would be in. I knew they weren't going to. We knew after a couple of races that they were not going to be on the level of Alpine and Racing Bulls. But Todd, I mean, we're talking about now that Aston Martin has come with these upgrades. They're down there with Cadillac as far as being kind of
They are.
the worst constructors on the grid. So that's kind of my thoughts on some ups and downs in the midfield. But that is going to be such a great battle to watch the rest of the years. Who's the best of the rest besides the big four?
Well, it is. And the Racing Bulls, I've enjoyed watching Lawson and Limlad. And let me tell
So
you,
much fun.
they weren't supposed to be racing each other, and they said, "Who cares? I'm going to
Yeah.
race,"
And it
And
was good. It was aggressive, but it was clean at the
it
same
was.
time.
It was, and Lawson had upgrades that Limland had last week, right? And together, they had a fun race. And you're
Yeah.
right, Audi. I've got them in my fantasy league, and so Nico, yay, he scored my first point because he's been
Yeah.
costing me.
Yeah.
But both of them are doing well. So I think it's between those two, and they might be, as we've talked about, nipping at Red Bull a little bit, but they'll figure it out. But those two have been great watching, and yeah, Aston Martin. I mean, Fernando it looked like he was having fun finally.
Hmm.
And then not Charles, Stroll at the end, he wanted ice cream. So he must have felt good. So fans, I mean, if you get to go back and watch it, I know you might not be able to see much on the coverage, but Aston Martin, they're trying and watch out. They might have figured some stuff out, and they could be up in, you know, sixth, seventh, and eighth place here before the end of the year. But and you're right, Williams and Cadillac's brakes. I don't know what's going on. They burn up all the time.
Yep.
So
Yep.
guys, I mean, folks, it's just going to be something to watch there. But it's it's been a good 11 races, and it's really starting to show who's who out there.
Yeah. Yeah. Todd, before we kind of start wrapping up here, I want to get your quick thoughts because I don't think there's one driver on the grid that's happier for the summer break than George Russell. I mean,
Yeah,
I think all of them are excited because it has been. I mean, it's been, we've had races canceled. It's just been up and down, new cars. I mean, not only physically but mentally, it's been a just a very tolling season. But George with an awful start, his car goes into anti-stall. I don't know what do you. I'm not trying to get a full, what your thoughts is for the second half of the season, but is it him? Is it like where do you think George is at right now?
well, I'm going to add Oscar to this too because I
Yeah,
think he's
yeah.
just as
He's
frustrated.
struggling too. Yeah.
And they're both having similar problems. And
Yeah.
Oscar and George are very, very talented. And you're starting to see, these episodes, these mishaps, these, not their fault type things, starting to weigh on them. And
Mm-hmm.
what will they do in the off season? I'd be going in like, what can I do, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
And my mind is going to be swirling to say, okay, is this the right place for me? Is this what can I do differently? I thought I did everything. I studied everything, and Oscar and George, because I've seen Oscar just frustrated too. George I think they're both very similar thinkers. They look at the data, they process it. George will express it a little more
Yeah,
than
yeah,
Oscar. Oscar just like, okay, well, let's get to the next race and figure it out. But I think the summer break is got to give them either some clarity on are they still the same drivers, which they are, or am I going to have to look at, after this season, just mull through it and look at
yeah,
another option because
yeah.
it's not working. And as we said on a couple of episodes before, George was supposed to be the star student, right?
Right,
And
right,
now he's getting beat by a 19-year-old. Not all his fault, but
right.
there's many things. So, and folks, if you've been in sports and anything, and if you get into these sophomore years, junior years, they call it, you start overthinking. And then when things happen, it starts piling on. So,
Yeah.
Brad, I think it's going to be a tough summer break for George and Oscar.
Yeah, good thoughts. But I agree. I think it's going to be tough. But there are, I think, two guys that they're gonna enjoy the time away. And just real quick, obviously, I've been a McLaren fan for years and was really excited when Oscar came in. That's the first time I really can remember Oscar like blowing up. Like and look, he had a right to. I mean, I really am a
Yeah.
fan of Carlos, and I know
Yeah.
they had some issues with a flashing blue light means hey, a front runner's behind you. You need to get out of the way. I know there was some malfunction issues there, but
Yeah.
that could I still think Lando probably had more pace, but that cost Oscar probably a P2. So
Well, it was
uh,
strategy too, right?
yeah,
Because
yeah,
why did they pull him in when they
that's
did?
fair. That's
He was
fair.
he was
Yeah,
asking a lot of questions on the
yeah,
radio,
yeah.
and
So it's a good reset for sure. So as we wrap up here, do have a little bit of breaking news, and of course, if you're an F1 fan, if you follow any kind of journalism, any kind of other shows with Formula One, you know that the big breaking news is that the Bahrain Grand Prix, excuse me, is going to be hosted in Malaysia. Malaysia has not hosted a Grand Prix, I believe, since 2017. So, Todd,
that's right.
I was checking out the track today. Man, this track looks super technical, super fun. It's going to be there in early October, so we're going to have 23 races now, and we'll see. Could TBD could hopefully have one more, of course, to make up for Jeddah that was canceled back in March as well. But Todd, I'm super excited. The big question mark is it's rainy season down there in
Oh,
the
yeah.
South Pacific, so we could see some monsoon like conditions. But Todd, I'm super excited that we're getting this. Hats off to Formula One, the FIA, and these two governments and these two circuits for figuring out an alternative. Bahrain is gonna fit the bill, is gonna foot the bill. They're gonna pay for everything. Just hosted by Malaysia, so I'm super excited. We're getting an extra race and a track that sounds like it's going to be really entertaining.
Well, yeah, and Brad, on that, if you listen to some of the retired drivers, they said where would be one place you'd want to go back and drive, and it's Malaysia,
Yep,
because
yep,
they say that you have to manage the car and you have to push it at the same time, and it's
yep,
so exciting, but it's so scary.
yeah,
So,
yeah.
and then you throw rain in there. Oh, yeah, but
It's going to be
it's
fun.
going to be exciting. But
Yeah,
yeah. I'm excited about that. And Brad, I mean, as we close here, Formula One always is teaching us that, every race is something different.
that's right.
And we thought we'd had it under. So we'll be back at Zondervan. I think that's a sprint race too. And so we got some exciting ones. We'll do a formation lap preview. But in between, we're excited to launch something new during the break, beyond the checkered flag. And we'll go beyond the race results. We'll go beyond, driver talk and, silly season. If something pops up, we will. But we want to give you a different view of Formula One from a fan's perspective. And we ask you to join us and watch those. We're going to look at a few of the races too and show you some examples of what we're talking about so that when you come out from the summer break and start watching, you'll be able to watch it with a different perspective. And it's from some regular guys watching elite racing. So,
Yep.
we hope that you'll join next time. And we'll be back, I think, August the 4th,
Yeah. Yep.
somewhere around there. And we'll have a couple of those series, and then we'll get ready for Zandvoort and then be ready. So, Brad, I'm excited. Thanks for
Yeah.
coming, and I'll let you close us out.
Yeah, yeah, no, absolutely. Thank you for putting that in there. As Todd said, we're going to do a couple episodes beyond the checker flag, so stay tuned for that. But thank you for checking in with us here on After the Checkered Flag, the Hungary Grand Prix, and give this video a like. Give us your thoughts and comments on what we saw in Hungary. Lando Norris back in P1, and please hit that subscribe button here on the Formation Lap. We appreciate all the support. Have a good summer break, and we will see you next time in late August for Zandvoort. This is Todd and Brad signing off.